to another edition of the Durham Bulls podcast, which is where our Durham Bulls fans come to celebrate really everything Durham Bulls related, our traditions, our histories, our championships, and our players and our coaches. I'm Patrick Kinas, the broadcaster for the Durham Bulls, and if this is the first time joining the pod, we thank you. You can subscribe on Apple and on Spotify and watch this pod in video form on our YouTube channel at Durham Bulls TV. So my privilege to bring in our first Canadian to the podcast since it started up a few months ago, Durham Bulls outfielder Tristan Peters, who has bounced around quite a bit in his early professional career, but he's we're happy to have him on as he continues his career in the Rays organization for his second year. And Tristan, first off, welcome to the show, and I'm sure it's a distinct honor of a lifetime to be the first Canadian on our podcast, right?
Oh, yeah. Absolute honor. Thanks for having me on, Pat.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your background first and foremost. So we'll get into your Canadian background in a little bit. But as I was getting ready for this, it kind of dawned on me, the Durham Bulls brand is so widespread across the United States. It's a global brand because of the movie. But you grew up in Manitoba, Winkler, Manitoba, just above, I guess, the border of North Dakota. Is Bull Durham or are the Durham Bulls, is that something that was known when you were growing up before you got into pro baseball?
Well, I didn't know about it when I was young and growing up in Canada. I think once I got more into baseball and got more out there, then I obviously knew about it. I don't know exactly when I first watched the movie, but I think my wife and I watched the movie this spring just to get caught up on it. But yeah, I'd known I watched it before.
So you watched it because you knew you were likely to break camp as a Durham Bull, right?
I mean, I was hoping for it, yeah.
And what were the reviews? Because this movie has been out there now for a couple of decades, and some people have seen this 100 times. You're watching it for the first time as a soon-to-be Durham Bulls player. What did you think about the movie? What did your wife think about the movie?
Well, from what I remember the first time or watching it, I didn't remember it being so like uh I don't know how to say it, or I guess not PG.
Yeah, risque, maybe?
Yeah, a little risque. I liked it a lot. It was funny. I mean, there's some iconic lines in there, and it's just so cool. And seeing the bull in right field, I'm like, wow, I mean, it's so cool to be playing here.
And what's interesting is it was Ron Shelton who wrote the movie, directed the movie, played minor league baseball, and we've had him on the broadcast a couple of times as he's rolled through Durham.
Oh.
But when I began broadcasting in minor league baseball back in the 90s, a lot of the Bull Durham kind of aspects and elements were still true. I mean, the crappy buses, the old stadiums. But since you've gotten into pro baseball, everything has changed. So is it different from your perspective to think that that's actually what minor league baseball was like, 20 years prior to you joining the game?
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about that a lot recently because I find it funny, but like it looked like a crazy trip playing baseball back in the day. I mean, you hear stories from guys who have played, and then you watch a movie like that, and you're like, wow, I mean, that's another level of grind.
Do you feel it is a grind though now in just a different context?
Yeah, compared to that, it's like we're living so easy, but yeah, I mean, it's still a grind sometimes being away from family and
Yeah.
just the traveling, but we're very fortunate to be in this position.
And you mentioned your wife. You've been married only a brief amount of time. Is she traveling with you? Is she in Durham, or is she back home as you're going through the gauntlet every week in a different city this summer?
Yeah, so she's in Durham full time, pretty much. She came to Charlotte, but she's not going to come on all the road trips, just because it's expensive and stuff like that. But I wish she could. Last year, first year of marriage, we were like, "You're coming on every road trip," so we did that. And we've got a dog, which makes it a little tougher. So,
And how did
I
you two
mean,
meet?
so we met country dancing in Arizona when I was in junior college. And then we didn't start dating for like 3 or 4 years after that. We were just best friends, and then yeah.
And did you meet in college, or did you literally meet at the club with the dancing?
Yeah, it was at this. It wasn't at college because she was going to ASU, and I was going to Chandler Gilbert
Hmm.
Community College. So my buddy invited me to this dance hall. Um, there it wasn't like a bar or anything. It was literally strictly dancing and country music. And so I went, and I was really nervous. I didn't, I'd never been out of my shell like that before. But then I met her there, and then we got this little friend group formed, and then we'd been best friends ever since, really.
So
Yeah.
I mean, this is fascinating. I'd love to hear the stories and on how Ryan Stanek met his wife and how Miles
Yeah.
Mastrobuoni met. I mean, it's just fascinating to see how we all operate in different bubbles and in different comfort zones. So I guess my first question is, were you a country fan in terms of music and dancing growing up in Canada, or was this way out of your element to go to this club that night?
So I would say I listened to country music every once in a while I was growing up, and it was just kind of standard because it was like a country town, a lot of farmers, and it was just very country. But then I started getting into the dancing, and I really got into country music. Now I'm like my favorite genre is country and blues, western type of stuff, more like the old style. But yeah, I never thought I'd dance to it though. I'm still blown away that I did that.
So take me to the first moment that you and your wife's name is
Aaron.
Erin. So take me to the first moment that you and Erin had that conversation. I mean, was it an open dance floor and you're looking for a partner? Was it grabbing a drink and she or you caught one another's eyes? How did it happen?
Yeah, so uh I can't quote, I'm trying to remember it. It was a while ago, but I just know she was there, and I remember thinking, dang, she's really pretty. And then I think I danced with her a few times because I was so nervous, and like I didn't want to ask any other random people because and so I just stuck with her friend group, and she was in it. And then I kind of got more out of my shell. The more we went like every Friday. So yeah, I always wanted to dance with her, of course.
It- it-
Yeah, yeah, it's a crazy
and
story.
and how good of a dancer were you then? I mean, were you a newbie at the club that day? I mean, you're meeting new people and learning the first moves?
Oh yeah, I was brand new. I'd never danced in my life. I mean, I was bad. There's people there showing up with their cowboy boots. I'm in my runners, my and I'm just looking like I could not get it down for the longest time, but I kept at it, and I actually got pretty good, I like to think.
Mm-hmm. And what
But
was
I
she a
slowed it down
newbie as
now.
well, or was she kind of instructing you as you were learning?
Well, she was, I think that was her first or second time going,
Okay.
so she's pretty new to it. I mean, she picked it up way faster than me. She's a bit smarter in that area,
I mean,
but yeah,
doesn't it tell you just how fate happens in life? I mean, it's your first
yeah,
time going to this club. She's been there once or twice, and next thing you know, you're dating, you're married, you're following this baseball dream, and she's your best friend on the entire planet, which is just
yeah,
astonishingly awesome to me.
yeah. No, it's super cool. Funny thing is too, like we didn't start dating for 3 years after that. Like we were strictly best friends. Like you could say I was in the
Hmm.
friend zone, as people would say. So, but I mean, I had my eyes set on her
Oh.
from that first day, and yeah, and then finally we went out, and then a year later we got married.
So what changed after 3 years? I mean, obviously this is kind of simmering in the back of your head that you'd like to start dating her, but certainly there was probably some hinge moment that made it a nerve-wracking ask from you to actually change the dynamic of the relationship, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, I asked one time before that, and she said no, and I think a lot of that had to do with me being so I went to SIU, and so I was leaving. I'm not from Arizona, and she was kind of living there. So long distance is scary, obviously. Um, and then yeah, and then I got back from SIU, so I got drafted. We actually stopped talking. We had a
Mm.
uh, disagreement, you could say, and so we stopped talking for 3 months. And then I just asked her to do a bonfire, just as a friend,
Mhm.
just wanted to rekindle a friendship or whatever. And then she's like, "Well, I'll go if you're asking me out." And I was caught off guard by that. And originally I was like, no, I mean, because I felt bad for, yeah. And and then eventually I was like, okay, yeah, yeah, I'm asking you out. And then that was our first date, I could guess you could say.
Oh, that's great. That's
It
good.
was a
So,
wild ride.
my last question on this topic is: did you get married before you got the dog, or did you get the dog before you got married? Because getting a dog as a couple is a huge commitment, and if it happened
Yeah.
before you got married, that's basically writing your vows because they're going to happen.
Yeah. No, we got her. So we got married January 14th, 2023. And then we got the dog in May. We were in Montgomery and I had gotten hurt, and we decided to get a dog like a week into
Uh,
me getting hurt. A little puppy from the shelter, and he's crazy, but
uh,
it is worth it.
Very nice. All right, well, let's get back in your background. So you grew up in Canada. You're barely above the border of what North Dakota is
Yeah,
a
and
couple of miles
Minnesota.
away. Can you give our fans and watchers a little virtual tour of what it's like in Winkler and you know, it's a small town from what I've read. So what is it like if we're going to visit Winkler, Manitoba?
Yeah, very small town. Everybody is like, so it's a Mennonite town. I don't know if you're familiar with
Mhm.
Mennonites, but they're very traditional. So we got a lot of traditional farming Mennonites.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just very community based, I guess. Like my whole family lives there almost. And so we'd go to like my grandma's every Sunday for lunch, and it'd be like all 18 of my cousins are there. Like huge families, huge families. Um, but yeah, and then I mean the countryside, it's just fields as far as you can see. It's flat, super flat. And then I mean we were 15 minutes from the North Dakota border, so we'd go to North Dakota for some tournaments in baseball and hockey and stuff like that. But yeah, not much to see on that end, and then lots of snow in the winter for a long time.
How much is a lot of snow?
Oh gosh. Um, Maybe like ah, 5 feet. It'd probably get up to
Yeah,
6 feet sometimes. I mean, you're getting feet of
yeah,
snow. It's
yeah.
and then it's just 6 months of that.
So I grew up in Chicago. So I've seen tons of snow, you know, lake
Oh
effect
yeah.
and snowstorms, but I'm not really a fan of snow. I mean,
Oh
do you like snow?
oh, man, I would like the snow a little more if it wasn't cold.
Okay.
It's the cold that gets me. The snow can be pretty, but honestly, I'm good with snow for Christmas and that's it.
Mhm.
But
So
yeah.
what would you do? I mean, as a kid, clearly, you know, hockey and baseball, we'll get into those backgrounds in a little bit, but what would a typical kid, I mean, what would you do with your friends, you know, when you're 12, 13, 15 years old in Winkler? I mean, is going to North Dakota the target, or is it going up to Winnipeg an hour and a half away? Is that the place? Are there places for you guys to go, and what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, we would go to Winnipeg once in a while. It was about an hour and a half north of us. We wouldn't go to North Dakota much. I know like mm, people will go grocery shopping there and stuff because it's cheaper. I'm
Yeah.
not too
Oh
sure
well.
about that, but they have better stores like Target. We don't have a Target or anything like
Mm.
that, even in Winnipeg. But um, honestly, we stuck around Winkler pretty much in like the surrounding area and just yeah, hung out there.
Mhm.
There was still a lot to do, especially in the summer. We took advantage of the
Yeah.
outdoors in the summer because in the winter it's hard to get out.
Yeah. What would the feast be like every Sunday at your grandma's? Because you're talking all of your cousins. I mean, this is like a family reunion every Sunday, it sounds like to me.
Yeah, I mean, like bless her, she's like cooked every Sunday. I don't know how, but one of my favorite meals she would make is Milanesa, and it's
Mm.
just like a thin beef. It's called Milanesa beef, I guess. You can do chicken, but then there's like this South American seasoning that she put on it, and it was just, and I put a bunch of lemon juice on this. It's my favorite
Mhm.
meal probably ever. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how she cooked for all of us every Sunday.
And how many people would be there? And you're talking 30 every week?
It would vary a little bit. Some people wouldn't always be able to make it, but it would be
Yeah.
probably around at least 20 to 25 around there. Maybe sometimes there's 30. Christmas is at least 30.
And how big is this castle that your grandmother's living in?
I mean, it's a good size house. It's definitely got room, but as the family's grown, like, oh, I'm the oldest out of all my 18
Okay.
cousins on that side, and I've gotten to see it grow. So it's gotten a little more crowded, but
Hmm.
there's plenty of room. We got a basement,
Yeah.
upstairs, main floor.
So what was baseball the sport for you? I know it's your sport now, certainly, and you're in AAA with
Mhm.
the Tampa Bay Rays. But was curling in your background? Was hockey in your background, or did some other sport or hobby command most of your attention?
Yeah, I think hockey is what I remember most from my childhood. I mean, Canada, I started skating when I was two,
Mm,
just with one skate on the ice. But I played that till my sophomore year of college. And, um, yeah, and then that's kind of when I started to like baseball a little more or
mm,
like realize I like the challenge of baseball. Hockey's great sport and the injuries are way too high in hockey.
mhm.
So that's another thing.
How,
But,
how how good of a
uh,
hockey player could you have been?
oh man. I think I could have been pretty good. Um, I think for me, I've never been like the biggest guy, so
Mhm.
I would get hit a lot, but I was fast, so I think I
Yeah.
could have been a pretty good forward.
So you're born in 2000. More on that in a second. The Expos were still a team then. I mean, they were there until 2004, until they finally relocated to Washington D.C. Were your parents baseball fans? Montreal's a hike from where you were, as is Toronto, the two Canadian teams. The Twins were, I guess, probably the closest team to you. But was your family a baseball fan? Did you go to many games as a kid growing up?
Oh yeah, so my dad loved baseball, and I think my mom loved baseball too, especially since she hated hockey because she hated going to my games. She was so scared I was going to get hurt,
Mm.
which obviously, but yeah, we were a hockey and baseball family. Um, my dad loved the Winnipeg Jets because they got brought back. Yeah, obviously, I don't remember the Expos at all because I was 4 years old by the time they were gone. But my dad was always a Blue Jays fan, huge Blue Jays fan. Um, but yeah, he loved baseball and he really like, yeah, we'd go watch Twins games
Hmm.
very rarely because it's 7 hours. But
Hmm.
then we have an independent ball team
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
Winnipeg, so we'd go up there for a couple games. I got to play there for Team Manitoba one time in Canada Summer Games.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's grown a lot in that
Yeah.
town, and yeah, it's really cool to see.
And Trevor Brigden on the Durham Bulls team, pitcher, also from Canada, was
Mhm.
on the World Baseball Classic Team Canada last
Right.
year. And unfortunately, there's no baseball in the Paris Olympics. There were in 2021 in Tokyo, and Shane Baz, your teammate, played for the U.S.
Right. Yes.
Is that a goal for you? I mean, the WBC, the Olympics will have it in LA in 2028, but that's a few years down the road. But certainly representing your country is extraordinarily special and far, far different, even if and when you get to the major leagues.
Yeah, I mean, I think that'd be super cool. Um, I was hoping to get the chance last year. I didn't, but yeah, I think it'd be really cool. Um, I also would love to play for Team USA one day. I think that I love America
Mm.
ever since coming here. But yeah, yeah, I think it'd be super cool.
So that raises another question I wanted to ask. First of all, are you a dual citizen or simply a Canadian citizen right now?
So just simply a Canadian citizen right
Okay.
now. I'm working on getting my green card, my permanent residence. So pretty excited about that. So I can start like working without a work visa. So I'm just
Hmm.
on a work visa right now. But my wife, Erin, she is a dual citizen because her mom is
Okay.
from Canada,
Hmm.
near where Brampton, Ontario.
Okay.
So my grandma does immigration, so she helped her out with her papers and she got her citizenship pretty easy. So she's a dual citizen.
This is the
Yeah.
same grandmother who feeds 30 people every Sunday.
Yeah.
She's busy.
Oh yeah, she's busy. She
It,
stays busy.
is it a goal of yours to become a dual citizen? Do you want to become a citizen of the U.S.?
Yeah, that's my goal is to
Mhm.
become a citizen. I know I've heard from my wife's family that has gone through that process
Mhm.
of that they've had to revoke their Canadian citizenship. which for me, it's not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
I want to live in the U.S. permanently,
Mm-hmm.
so whatever I have to do to get that, I mean, yeah.
I don't think I've ever really asked anybody about this, but what's the process by which, when you're not a citizen of the U.S. as an athlete, whether you're from the Dominican or Mexico or Venezuela or Canada, what's the process by which accessing, like getting in the country? I mean, is it arduous? Is it pain in the butt, or is it a fairly simple process, at least for you?
Um, for
Like,
Canadians, I'd say it's a lot easier just crossing the border and stuff and getting into the U.S. They're not as like you could say skeptical, just because I don't know. I don't totally understand it, but
mm,
um, green card and citizenship wise, it's just expensive and like from what I've heard, and I haven't quite experienced it yet, but they just don't really care to push you through to get your green card very fast because it's like not up and it's not a priority to them, I guess. But so it's just a wait. It can be a long waiting game
mm.
and an expensive one too.
So when you and your buddies, when you're 13, 14 years of age, bopping down to North Dakota or going to Target, right, for the cheaper
Yeah.
groceries and the shopping, what's the process like, just trying to cross the border and run to Target to get some Skittles and go back home?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty simple
Okay.
from going to Canada to the US. They ask you if you have firearms and stuff like that. I mean the basic
Mm-hmm.
questions, but they don't interrogate you too much. During COVID, that was completely different. I find that going into the US is a lot easier than coming into Canada, even as a Canadian citizen. I don't know what it is, but the Border Patrol on the Canadian side is just not, they're not the nicest people. Especially during COVID. I mean,
Yeah.
I felt like I was getting interrogated coming back home during COVID. It was insane.
So we're visiting with Tristan Peters of the Durham Bulls, and let's talk now about your baseball journey, because you and I had a chance to chat a couple of weeks ago when the Bulls were on the road somewhere, wherever that was, Lehigh Valley, Worcester, I lose track, about coming down to the U.S. and playing college. You didn't have many opportunities. You bounced around, as you mentioned, to your junior college, Chandler Gilbert, out in Arizona, then to SIU, which is a school that I considered going to when I was looking at grad schools. So tell me about that journey, because pro baseball suddenly got on your radar when you were late teens, but finding a spot to play to showcase your talents was not necessarily easy, right?
Right. Yeah. So starting back in Winkler, very small town. Baseball's not huge. Nobody knows. Even Winnipeg, like there's not scouts really scouting you for pro ball or even college. That maybe a few colleges here and there, in like North Dakota, but they're like D2s and NAIs and stuff like that. But so I moved out of Winkler when I was about 16 years old to Okotoks, Alberta. I lived with my aunt in Calgary, Alberta, and so there's a lot more exposure there just because it's like a sort of academy. Incredible program. I mean, if it weren't for them, I wouldn't be here today. So I went there 2 years. We traveled around the US and Canada playing in big tournaments, getting scouted. And yeah, after that, I had some interest from mostly junior colleges, nothing like Division One or anything, some D2s and NAIs. I decided to go the junior college route just because I think it just gives you a lot more opportunity. You're
Mhm.
draft eligible. You can go to a D1. The transfer portal wasn't the same thing it was at that time, and so yeah, and that was turned out to be a great decision because I met my wife and all
Mhm.
that stuff. So yeah, um, and then Chandler Gilbert, obviously Arizona's a hot spot for baseball.
Yeah, yeah.
Tons of scouts. I had some pro interest in after my second year during COVID. It was a weird year, of course. Um, wasn't a ton of interest, but that kind of just ignited that spark in me. I'm like, okay,
Mhm. Mhm.
I have a possibility of going pro. Um, so then I went to SIU, and my goal the whole time I was there, I'm like, I want to get drafted.
Yeah.
That's what I'm playing for right now. And and that was kind of just to get back to Arizona, or so I could to get back to Erin in Arizona. So it's all about her, like just trying to get back to her, you know.
Yeah. You're
But
you're a wise man, Tristan Peters.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, so that was my goal, and yeah, I got drafted by the Brewers in the seventh
Hmm.
round that year. Played for the Bananas that summer,
Hmm.
and I mean it was yeah, it's been a pretty awesome journey looking back. I mean, a lot of steps to get here,
Yeah, yeah.
but every one of them worth it.
All right, three quick follow-ups on that story. Number one, how difficult was it for you and for your parents to move out when you're 16 and go to this academy? Because clearly you're really close with your family and your extended family, but now you're beginning to pursue a hopeful collegiate slash pro baseball career and have to move, what, a couple of hours away?
Yeah, more than a couple, 12 hours
12
total
hours, 12
away.
hours.
So yeah, I mean, coming out of Winkler, it's a bubble and it's hard to leave because it's very comfortable. So I was very scared to leave. And what helped was my aunt was there and I lived
Hmm.
with her and that helped tremendously. Um, but yeah, it was definitely hard on my parents. I mean, I left
Yeah,
at 16. Um, and I mean, I'm still gone basically.
yeah,
So I mean, they've done so much for me in my career, like just being there
yeah,
for me and like all the trips they've taken me on and just being able to let go and let me kind of
yeah,
find myself too. Um, it's yeah, it's tough, but I mean,
yeah,
it's worth it.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And what was the name of the academy?
Okotoks Dogs Academy.
Okay, okay,
And then they have a summer team too, a summer college team that I
okay.
played for.
So then now you find yourself in Arizona and you're coming from this academy up in Canada. Think you're a pretty good player, but really because the talent is so different up in Canada versus certainly Arizona, California, Texas, Florida, here in the States. When you got to Arizona competing in that first year at JUCO, how did you feel like your talent stacked up? Because now you're going against some of the elite players in the country.
Yeah, no, I felt pretty good, pretty confident. Um, Fortunately, like Okotoks Dogs, like we played some really talented
Okay.
teams, and so we got to face and we used wood bats in high school.
Okay. Oh,
So that kind of prepared me for the JUCO, the junior college wood bats. But I like it was, and then we'd go to Arizona for some tournaments too. So
yeah.
I mean, we've been facing pretty good teams, but
Okay.
then I just remember playing Central Arizona College, and I mean, they had some dudes. They're all throwing 90 plus, and I was like, this is crazy. But
Yeah.
yeah, just there was obviously a lot of work to be done, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah, that's one of the premier programs out there for sure. That
yeah,
and the community college of Southern Nevada is another team. I don't know if you came
yeah,
across them at all,
yeah,
but they're always loaded. So
oh
then you
yeah,
then you get to Carbondale, which is a party city. It's known for that. Even where I grew up, that's if you
yeah,
wanted to go to a party school, it's either Illinois State or Southern Illinois, and that was the spot.
oh yeah,
So your goal now, you're now at D1, which is huge. You're in the Missouri Valley Conference, which is a decent baseball conference, not the best, but it's decent. But
right.
SIU didn't have really a great history of producing pro players, which
Mm.
how did that land with you to knowing that what the end goal was of getting to pro ball and trying to use SIU as the vehicle to get there?
Yeah, so when I went there, we had pretty much a whole new coaching staff. A lot of guys from Mizzou came over, and I know Cameron Meisner knows a lot of the guys that I got coached by, um, which is super cool.
Yeah.
Small world.
Yes, it is.
Um, but
And
they,
he might actually country dance too.
yeah, he might. That's funny. Yeah. Um, but so that coaching staff kind of gave me the confidence, like, okay, these guys, they've been to a higher end Division 1. They kind of
Mhm.
know what they're doing. And I looked at the conference too. I'm like, they've got Dallas Baptist. Um, and there's some surprisingly good teams in that league, Indiana State.
Yeah.
Um, so I looked at it that way. I'm like, okay, this isn't, there's, it was probably the best conference I could go to, out of my options anyway.
Mhm.
And
Because you didn't have many options, right?
Not a ton. I think
Yeah.
so. I had SIU, um, Alabama, Birmingham, which is a decent conference
Mhm.
too, but they had a rough year that year. And then Louisiana, Monroe,
Mhm.
which is Sun Belt, and they're decent conference too.
Mhm.
They're all just decent conferences. I just felt
Mhm.
like I was going to become a better player at
Yeah.
SIU.
So
The coaching staff is
did you
good.
feel a sense of urgency now because you're making some pretty big steps quickly, right?
Hmm.
You've left Canada, you left the academy, you're at the JUCO, then you get bumped to D1, and now you could be draft eligible after what, one season at
Yeah.
Carbondale. And that now, I mean, are you feeling like the dream is really close if you produce in that one year?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I had agents contacting me, my current agent, he was contacting me and I was giving me some confidence too. I'm like, wow, this
Mm,
could really happen.
mm.
Um, and then it came along and I was like, and I had a good year at SIU and yeah, so it was really cool. Just yeah, I can't
Yeah.
believe it became a reality.
So when I talk with your manager Morgan Ensberg about you and your style, the first thing, and he's managed you now for a little more than a year. He had you at Double A last year
Mhm.
in Montgomery. The one thing that he says he never has to worry about your effort. You know, the one ask that he seems to have of his players is give me effort, run out
Mhm.
balls. And he said with Tristan Peters, I never need to be concerned that he is going to be, 70% down the first base line, because he knows that's your style. That to me has certainly not number one about your ability, but number two, that tells me a lot more about just your work ethic and your commitment, and something happened probably in your background that makes you do that every single time. And I'm curious to see what in your mind that might be.
Right, yeah. I think it had a lot to do with just how I my dad was my coach in baseball. I think he may have coached me in hockey a bit. Um, but so hockey was we had some difficult practices and stuff.
Hmm.
And I mean, we were expected to work really hard and it's just you got to skate hard and I think it stems a lot from hockey, weirdly. But um I just see it as like I may not be the most talented individual. Like there's Mike Trouts, there's Ronald Acuna's, and they've got insane talent.
Hmm.
But I'm going to run as hard as I can because I can control that, and I'm going
Yeah,
to do everything as hard as I can so I
yeah,
can control that because it's within my control. Um, and that's a big thing in baseball, like doing what you can
yeah,
control.
yeah.
I find that it's been biggest learning point for me is just controlling the controllables and
Mhm.
not worrying about what you can't control, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I'll have you meet my color commentator for the Bulls home game. Scott Poe has played in the big leagues for about 3.5 years he was the first batter in Florida Marlins history in their expansion year, but he played with the Yankees, played with the Royals, and he relates a story generally once a year about how he got extra big league service time because he was not the most talented player. He had no pop. He was a defensive oriented center fielder who could make contact and run, and he bunted a lot. And there
Right.
was a game he was playing in AAA. I think he said he might have been in Columbus, but the team they were playing against, the managers, coaches clocked the opposing players up to first base line. So it was in April, and they clocked Scott at like a 3.9, 3.88 or something up the first base line. So he's really quick. In
Oh,
August, when they played the same team, Scott's team is now like 40 games under 500 and hits a ground ball, runs down the first base line, same time. So that caught the eye of the coaching staff. And then so the following year, Scott signs a free agent deal with the Yankees. They bring him to big league camp and they pulled him aside. I think it was the GM who pulled him aside or the manager of the Yankees and said, do you know why you're here? And Scott, a real kind of self-deprecating, humble guy, says, "To be honest, I have no idea why I'm here. Like, I can't believe you signed me." And so they told the story about we clocked you in April last year at what 3.88. 4 months later, on just the worst team in the league, you're still running a 3.8 down the line, and that's why he's here. Then he got big league time with the Yankees, got big league time with another team, and so
yeah.
hopefully that point lands with you on those type of things, no matter how analytical and computerized the game is now, scouts see that those things still matter and it can impact careers.
Absolutely. And same with managers and just like,
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I think it's a energy too for a team. Like it's just, yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned the Savannah Bananas. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about your 2021 season with Savannah, because you had just been, you were not yet drafted. Tell me the timeline, because that was the year you were drafted too out of SIU.
Right.
But so walk me through that and give me an idea about the entry to Savannah for you, because I have some questions about that.
Yeah.
A couple.
So yeah, that was right after SIU. I went over to Savannah. Um, I think I got there a little late just because we had our conference tournament stuff. But let's see. So I got drafted not too long into it. I got drafted the day before we wore the kilts. So I was still there for that. I just wasn't able to play. But yeah, so it turns out the coach for the Bananas still is the coach right now. He coached against me in junior college at South Mountain Community College. Um, and he really liked the way I played. And so he contacted my SIU coach. He's like, hey, does he want to play for the Bananas? And they asked me, and I'm like, heck yeah, sure. That's hilarious. No way. I was not expecting it. But then I got there, and I mean, oh, it was a completely different world. They were doing TikToks and we're doing these dances and stuff. I'm like, wow, all right, well, here we go. But it was a lot of fun. Probably some of the most fun I've had playing baseball.
So and so first question I have is the two coaches who knew each other, what were their names?
The one of the Bananas coach.
Yeah, yeah.
So Tyler Gillum was the head coach there.
Okay.
And then my SIU coach is Lance Rhodes.
Okay. So you first off, when was the last time you ever wore yellow? I don't see you as a guy who wears yellow all that much.
Yeah, no, that might have been the first and the last time I've worn yellow.
So when you get down to Savannah, clearly you knew about what Jesse Cole had done with that baseball team, and now ironically another national brand that you're playing for. What was your first day like with them?
I didn't really know what to expect. I knew they did like videos and stuff like that, but the first day I remember Jesse Cole, great, amazing dude, very, very intelligent on the business side, and just like really knows how to connect with people. He would take all of us one on one and just talk to us about how he built this team basically, and just like kind of his expectations and like what to expect. So that was really nice to get an introduction to like what's going on here. So that was awesome, just having that one-on-one conversation with him. And then oh man, I'm trying to remember back. I think we had a few practices and we would go over like TikToks and what videos we're gonna film that day. It was like it was weird. But it was a lot of fun. And then like before every game, we'd have a whiteboard and we'd have all our celebrations written down when we score runs. So we'd have these wacky celebrations when we score a run. In the second inning, if guys would do a choreographed dance to a certain song. I did two of those. One after I got drafted in the kilt. I think that one was to some Britney Spears. But yeah, it was just another completely different world.
which is so ironic to me, because it's pretty well established in this interview. You're more comfortable not being in spotlights, right? You're more comfortable just kind of being. I don't want to say you're introverted, but you don't seek out spotlights to me.
Yeah. No, I'd definitely be more leaning more to an introvert. But the Bananas kind of pulled that out of me, which is awesome because I think it just gives me some more tools. But it was fun. It was also fun to be in the spotlight a little bit too. But the thing is too, and Jesse would tell us this: the number one thing with the Bananas is it's the fans first. So I guess it wasn't really about me being in the spotlight or any of us. It was about the fans. We made them feel important. After every game, we'd dance with them. We'd sing "Stand By Me." We'd sing We do. It was incredible. I mean, the fans love it. There's a reason they
Mhm.
sell out every game. It's
Yeah.
because they really, really care about the fans.
Were the players the ones who would choreograph and kind of come up with the creative approaches on celebrations or antics in between pitches, or would that come more from the Bananas front office crew?
No, I think it was so like celebrations and stuff was kind of we collaborated on that as players and coaches. Before the game, it was kind of planned ahead of time, and then some
Mhm.
guys would do their own thing just in the spur of the moment. 'Cause
Okay.
guys were good at that. I wasn't quite like that.
No improv from you.
No, I'm not very good at improv. Um, but then the choreographed dance in like the second inning was we have our first base coach, sometimes he was, um, he would choreograph it, and because he's an incredible dancer. I think he went on some dance
Oh
show. I
wow.
don't know how far he made it, but he's still doing bananas. But yeah, we do that before the game if like guys who aren't playing would do the dance. And I volunteered twice because I thought, what the heck, it's fun, it's funny, and I'm not playing, so I want to do something. But and then the front office would do things like, oh, okay, so you're gonna have a band walk you up. So I had a band walk me up playing the John Cena theme song. Turns out John Cena retweeted it on Twitter at the time,
Of course he did.
and I mean, it was incredible. Like the front office to have their idea. It was everybody had different ideas and it all
Yeah.
blended together. It was really cool.
So, I mean, it leads to another odd question because this is now, I don't know, a couple of weeks, a month before you get drafted. You clearly want to play pro baseball. This is such an incredible environment with just a bizarre, wacky, unique environment to play. So I'm thinking about like early work when the Bulls are playing here in Jacksonville, and there's the hands guys with Morgan Ensberg. It's the early ground balls, the early fly balls, all that stuff that goes in. What is 1 o'clock in the afternoon before a game like? Because you want to stay sharp because you're about to get drafted, yet you still need to worry about dance moves and kilts and bats that are on fire to present a big show to the fans that night.
Yeah. Now with their whole thing, it's different because that's their whole job now. Is traveling and playing banana ball. But while we were there, we were still doing BP on the field.
Okay.
If you're playing, you're locking in for the game. You're still
Okay.
competing.
Okay. Okay.
And we ended up winning the league that year too.
Yeah, he
I
went
wasn't
30,
there to win
35
it.
and 8.
Oh, I know. We were incredible. Like, so we do all that other stuff, but I mean,
Mhm.
it was still at that time, it was still most important for us to
Mhm.
play and play well. And
Mhm.
yeah, obviously the
Yeah.
draft's coming up, and
Yeah.
so I was taking it serious, but you also got to learn how to have fun in baseball. And I
Yeah.
think it
Yeah.
really helped
Yeah.
me to learn how to still have fun and not take it too seriously.
Yeah.
You know,
I've asked guys this who have gotten to the big leagues and their careers are done, and I'll ask you this now. Did you keep any special mementos from that time with Savannah? Because that's such an unusual um, you know, moment in your history that I don't know that anything could, and I should say anything will surpass it, but that's going to be a memory that you reflect on decades down the road, regardless of where your major league career takes you.
absolutely. So I got a jersey with my name on it. Actually, we ordered a few of them. I think they were our military night jerseys. So I have one of those. My family has one. So I kept that. I didn't keep much else.
You keep the kilt?
Um, no, unfortunately, I couldn't keep the kilt. I was just glad I got to wear it one game. So
Oh, what a great story. So let's wind down with you because you have more important things to do. But quickly through your pro career, you got drafted in 21, but you've been traded twice and two times within what a 4-month, 3-month span
yep.
from Milwaukee over to San Francisco and then San Francisco over to Tampa Bay. How did that strike you? The first and then second times within 4 months.
Yeah. So the first one was crazy. So I was in Wisconsin with the Timber Rattlers. This is my first full pro season. Um, and I get promoted. I've been hitting really well, and then I get promoted to Double A to go to Biloxi. So I head over to Biloxi or down to Biloxi about 14 hours. Or actually, we're going to Mississippi. So I met them on the road. Got there. We're in a rain delay. I'm playing cards with some of the guys, and just like, yeah, I'm pumped to start. I'm leading off my first game in Double A. I'm super pumped. And then the manager, Mike Guerrero, comes out and he's like, "Okay, Peters, you got traded to the Giants." I'm like, "Oh, wait, what?" I haven't even played a game yet in Double A. And so nobody called. Like, that's all I knew. And nobody had called me. Somebody calls me like an hour later and they're like, "Yeah, we just traded for you. I'll get you more details later." And then I'm like, "Okay, I have no idea where I'm going now. Am I going to Richmond? I'm going back to
Right.
high A. I'm scared I'm going to go back to high A because I just got promoted." And then they're like, and then about probably 5 hours later, the game got canceled because of rain. And then they're like, 5 hours later, they're like, "Yeah, you're gonna go to Richmond.
Mm-hmm.
Just drive there tomorrow morning." I was like, "All right." And then we'll fly you out the next morning to New Hampshire because they're on the road on
Right.
they're in the middle of a 2 week road trip. So it was crazy. So I stayed the night with the Brewers Hotel. My roommate was Robert Gasser. He's now a big
Yeah,
leaguer. He
yeah,
just
yeah,
debuted the other day.
yeah.
So I don't know the guy that well, but he was my roommate that night. And then so I drive. So then I wake up, drive early, drive 14 hours back up north to Richmond. Get there, I've got like a flat tire. I do an interview on the way, a radio interview in San Francisco on the way. Um, and then yeah, I've got a flat tire that I have to keep filling up. So I get to
Gosh.
Richmond, drop my car off or stay at the hotel, drop my car off in the morning at the field that I've never been to,
Right.
go to the airport, and um, then I get there and they cancel my flight and they move it to 8 p.m. instead of the morning. So I call the guy. I'm like, "Hey, they moved my flight to later." And he's like, "Well, can you Uber to DC, 2 hours away, and fly from there?" I'm like, "Yeah." So they pay for the Uber and everything. And I'm like, "All right." So I Ubered 2 hours in DC,
How
fly
much
out of
how much
there
did that cost? Not you, but how much did that cost the team?
about 150, 170. I think it was somewhere around there. Oh my goodness. And then finally get on a plane. I'm dead tired, like just not feeling it. And then I get to New Hampshire. I didn't play that day, thank goodness.
Mm-hmm.
I played the next day. Um, and then turns out too, while I was traveling, I was just not aware. My jeans had a huge rip in them, probably about this big, and nobody in the airports or anything said anything. So, meanwhile too, I was planning to propose that the next week.
Oh my gosh.
So I thought I was going to do it in Wisconsin, and then I thought I was going to do it in Biloxi. I'm like, I'll just do it on the beach or whatever. And then I
Ho
get traded. I'm like, I guess I'll do it in Portland, Maine.
hopefully not in those jeans.
No, not in those jeans. No, I had another pair. Uh, yeah.
I
So then we get to Portland, Maine. I'm sorry, this is a long story, but
it's a podcast. This is what it's for.
yeah, that's fair. Um, so we finished that New Hampshire series, go to Portland, Maine. Thursday's a day game, 11 a.m. And I was flying my wife in my now wife, girlfriend at the time, into Portland. She just finished a night shift at the hospital because she's a nurse, a pediatric nurse.
Mm-hmm.
And she just finished a night shift. She's supposed to get in the Wednesday night. Her flight gets canceled. She has to sleep in the airport.
Oh,
She
good.
gets in early. I had to book another flight. Gets in early Thursday because I was like, I'm proposing. I had the ring shipped there and everything. And then she's dead tired. And we just go for a walk along the ocean in Portland. Never thought I'd be in Portland, Maine. Um, and I found this photographer and she helped me out
Oh, wow.
with a spot and stuff and proposed there. And the rest is history for
Unbelievable
that trade.
story.
Yeah.
Unbelievable story.
Yeah.
I can't help but still go back to that Uber driver just for a second because I drove Uber and Lyft for
Oh
9 months
yeah.
several years ago, and it was
Oh
all
yeah.
about the stories. But what happens is when you're a driver, you don't get word on the destination until the person gets in the car.
Right.
You may get a notification that this is going to be a longer drive than normal. Are
Right.
you available and up for it? So I'm assuming the driver picked you up and all of a sudden clicks the start button and you want to go to Washington, D.C. 2 hours away.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
She seemed to be all in. She was a
No
chatty
problems.
one. She was chatty, which was great because it kept me awake and just like it was good because of the long drive.
Oh,
But she was down for it. I mean, the drive back had to have been rough. There was some traffic,
yeah.
but
Yeah. I
felt
mean,
bad for her.
she might have been down to like I don't know, Richmond or
Yeah.
Columbia, South Carolina for like the next ride before she went
Right.
back up north. All right, so
Yeah.
let's wind things down with you. First off, thank you so much for your time. Our
Hmm.
guest is Tristan Peters, 6-year-old outfielder for the Durham Bulls, and I say that in jest because I've never come across a player in my career who was born on Leap Day, February 29th.
Yeah.
So that you are one of 5 million in on the
Right.
planet of 8.1 billion people. Only 5 million, it's a tiny percentage have
Yeah.
been born on February 29th. What's a birthday like for you, and how big are your cakes when February 29th happens every 4 years?
Yeah. I mean, it's weird. Everybody asks when I celebrate. I celebrate on the 28th because I'm not
Okay.
a March baby. I'm a February baby. Um, but yeah, every 4 years. So I've done something special every 4 years, except for this year. It's different now in pro ball because it's spring training.
Mhm.
But uh, I remember one year when for my 16th, my fourth birthday, I went to I went to New York with my mom. I got a free meal at Hard Rock Cafe. I got a free 6 donuts or something, or six
Okay.
sprinkles cupcakes at Sprinkles.
Oh.
So there's a lot of cool promotions for me, so that's cool. But yeah, it's pretty neat having a
Yeah.
real birthday every 4 years.
Have you met anybody else who was also born on February 29th?
Surprisingly, I've met quite a few. So we have family friends, and they have a girl that she's my age, and yeah, I think they're my mom's friends, and or my parents' friends, I guess.
Mhm.
And she was born on a leap year. She's in the military now. And then I had a teammate in Okotoks. He was actually my locker mate. He was also born on
Huh,
February
huh.
29th. So I'm kind of shocked at how many people I've met born
Yeah,
on 29th.
yeah. So I did a little digging to find out like there have to be some celebrities who have been born on February 29th.
Right.
Not a lot of notable people, but Ja Rule was born on February 29th. Al Rosen, who was an MVP of the American League, was born on February 29th, but
Right.
not many.
Right.
So you can become kind of the torchbearer of February 29th birthdays here
Yeah.
soon.
Right. Yeah. I think there's actually one more guy in the minor leagues right now. They did the minor league players association or whatever did a
Okay.
whole thing on him, and they're like, hey, I'm born on 29th too.
I mean, I know there's like a Facebook group for moms. My wife is in a
Yeah.
lot of those. Are there
Oh yeah.
Facebook groups or TikTok groups for people born on February 29th? Or you can all
I haven't
talk
joined
and
any
bond
of
and
them.
complain about things.
I'm sure there is. I should do that. I should check that out. That's a good
Yeah,
idea.
yeah, yeah. All right, Tristan, I can't thank you enough for sharing all
Yeah.
these wonderful stories with us. And
Yeah.
best of luck as you continue your first season here with the Durham Bulls. Thanks as always.
Yeah. Thank you, Pat.
All right, so that's Tristan Peters, outfielder for the Durham Bulls, joining us on the Durham Bulls podcast. A reminder, if you have not subscribed, please do on Apple, on Spotify, and you can watch this podcast. A new one drops every Monday on Durham Bulls TV on our YouTube channel. So for Tristan Peters, Jatovi McDuffie, who is going to put all the post-production lipstick on this podcast, I'm Patrick Kinas. We'll see you next week on the Durham Bulls podcast.